Do we need to bring in more help for aged care from overseas? One of the arguments from those arguing for immigration is that our population is ageing. There's also a concern for the health industry, where New South Wales hospitals are feeling the squeeze from aged care bottlenecks. For example, in the Illawarra and Shoalhaven, reports say that on a typical day, up to 150 public hospital beds are occupied by patients who no longer need acute care but can't access aged care places. This in turn ramps up pressure across the system. Melinda Cilento is the Chief Executive of a policy think tank named Committee for Economic Development of Australia, and they're proposing a solution. Welcome, Melinda.
Hi, Caitlin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, very pleased to have you here. Before we get into your proposal, can you paint a quick picture of the aged care industry as it stands, as you see it?
Yeah, look, I think it's an industry where demand is growing really fast, and we've got workforce shortages and increasing expectations around the types of care and support that we can provide for many, many more Australians. So there's a lot of challenges there, but I think, we've got a lot of levers that we can pull on, of which thinking about the role that migration already is playing in the workforce and needs to play in the future is an important one.
So what is your organisation suggesting?
Well, we did some research a little while ago that identified the shortage that we're likely to see in terms of having the right number of aged care workers to meet the demand in the future. And at the risk of, putting alarming numbers out there, our estimates are that by 2050, we might have a shortage of up to 400,000 workers, and that's to provide services to upwards of 2.5 million people who are going to be older Australians looking for care. At the moment, the workforce already relies significantly on a migrant workforce, and really what we're proposing is the fast tracking of an essential skills visa that would allow us to bring in workers who are experienced and have the right skills to complement our domestic workforce.
How easy is that to do?
Look, as I said, we've got a significant number of temporary migrants already in the workforce. Many of them come in on different visas. They come in with their spouses or partners, their students. So we know that people want to come and work in Australia, but we think what's really important is that we've got a visa that works well for employers, but is also bringing in the workers with the skills and the experience that can really complement and provide the care that our older Australians are looking for, both in the home and in residential aged care.
So on the ground, for a small regional provider trying to hire, say, 2 personal care workers, how would your proposed visa differ from today's labour agreement process?
Yeah, so the labour agreement process now is pretty cumbersome. You've got to reach a sort of memorandum of understanding. You've got to do labour market testing. All of these things can take up to 12 months. What we're proposing is that employers could register their interest, and likewise, migrants with the right skills could nominate themselves to migrate to Australia, and that we could use an online portal like the Skills Select one that already exists to match employers and workers in a really fast and efficient way, whilst still maintaining all the checks and balances, if you like. We can, test the skills, we can do all the English language testing, all the rest of that, but actually really expedite the process and get the cost out for business as well.
It's certainly a complicated process. What are the hurdles that you'll need to clear to make this change happen?
Look, what we propose is, as I said, really focusing on these essential skills, particularly in the care sector. We know the government understands the workforce shortages. We know they want to see the implementation of their own reform packages go smoothly. So I think they're receptive to the understanding that we're going to have to grow the workforce. But I think what we need to do is just push ahead to make sure we can streamline these processes, maintain the checks and balances, as I said. So I think the government understands it. They've committed to a pathway. Our research out today shows that pathway, the labour agreements, isn't bringing in the workforce that we need. I think we can get going on an essential skills visa. It draws on a lot of what's already there and really help businesses get the care workforce they need, which is really helping the Australians who need the care as well.
Mm-hmm. So how do you avoid migration simply, shuffling staff between providers, especially when many visas are going to people who are already, in Australia, maybe students or partners, rather than growing overall supply. What's your metric for net new positions?
Yeah, well, that's what we think the skills visa will help us to do at the moment, because the labour agreements are so difficult, they're so time-consuming. Employers are only going to use those for workers that they really know well, and that's workers who are already here. So if we can streamline the process, we think that's going to see a growth in the number of workers here. It's not about displacing local workers. It's not about undercutting wages or conditions. Quite the contrary, we actually have to boost those as well. So I think it's really doable. I think it provides a solution that employers need. On the mobility piece, I actually think that allowing workers to be able to move from employers is not a bad thing. We've seen previously in other visas that if you tie a worker to a particular employer, that can make them more vulnerable to exploitation. And so we actually think allowing workers to come in and then work across the sector is not a bad thing, and that mobility actually supports the sector more positively.
We know Canada tried something similar in 1992 but abandoned it in 2014 amid accusations of exploitation in lower paid care migration schemes. I mean, you mentioned, that wages obviously need to be higher in this case. How else can we avoid the same result?
Look, we're very mindful of that, and as I've just explained, I think allowing mobility is one really important thing. The other thing that it's worth pointing out is that, we're very keen for, unions to be involved in this process. What we're proposing is that as workers come in, the unions are notified of who's coming in, and so they're aware of the workers. The other thing that we're also advocating for is that we regularly review how this process is working. So every 3 to 5 years, depending on what the right sort of time frame is, we want to run the ruler over, see how it's working. And of course, employers who are found to be doing the wrong thing would then not have access to what is essentially a more efficient and effective system for them.
Interesting ideas, and such an important issue to be talking about. Melinda Cilento, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time.
That's Melinda Cilento. She is the Chief Executive of a policy think tank called the Committee for Economic Development of Australia. What do you think about that idea? We certainly need to talk about solutions in the aged care space, don't we, here on ABC New South Wales.